go. Oh, somebody's here. How y'all doing tonight? But before I get started here, I'm going to, with the Dent Run Gold, just a little bit of housekeeping, if you will. A little bit of an update. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be starting to put out videos probably like Saturday and Sunday. And I'm going to start, I have a lot of different series going. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick like two or three series and do videos for those. I'm going to start round robin, doing like a round robin with them, like every weekend. When the time change comes, I'm going to be going to work in the dark and coming home in the dark. So I'm not going to have any time at all to shoot in the daylight during the week. I might, if there's some indoor stuff I can do, I might do that. Uh, Other than that, the live streams aren't going to change. The live streams are always going to be Tuesday at 8 o'clock. So there's that. But I figured that'd be the best way. I can make things a little bit more organized, and instead of being sporadic on when I put my videos out, I can just okay, this is when they're going to be coming out, and it's not going to start. It's not going to start this coming weekend. It's going to start the following weekend because I'm going away this weekend. So there's that. But on with the story here. And we left off here on page 13, and we're going to do a little bit of reading and ask some questions, and do a little bit more reading and ask some more questions, and just work our way through this here. But the section I'm on is called Fact or Fiction. One of the most often asked questions about the Dent Run lost gold shipment is whether or not the story is true. In an effort to find the answer to this question, it requires reviewing all the available information pertaining to the story in order to determine the story's validity. First, the story itself. Who wrote the story? When was it written? And when was the story first published? An answer to any one of these questions would have a huge impact in regards to the story. One account claims the origin of the lost gold story was found on a carved piece of cherry wood nailed to the back of a bedpost in Caledonia about 50 years after the alleged shipment supposedly happened. The inscription read, "In 1863, a 2-hour battle near a big rock," and goes on to state, "They see me." This in itself presents a number of questions. Who was the author of this carving? Was he a member of the lost gold shipment, or is this just a fabrication? Does this carving still exist? And if so, who's in possession of this carving? Which nobody ever found that. Hey, CD. So there is that. Um, as I said, they never found the carving in Caledonia. Is not that far from Dent's Run. We're talking maybe at the most 7 miles, maybe. So it's not that much of a stretch for it to travel that far. Is there any mention of finding a written copy of the story on the back of the bedpost? This poses still other questions. Was the origin of the written story and the finding of the carving two separate happenings? Was the person who made the carving aware of the story before or after he made the carving, or was the carver totally unaware of the written account of the story? Now, to me, my question is, the carver, I think, was there. I mean, let's go back to that. The inscription read, "In 1863, of a 2-hour battle near a big rock," and goes on to state, "They see me." Now, either they were there or someone sees them carving on the wood, one of the two. But that leads me to believe that maybe that person was there. Okay. Who was the author of the story, and what was his motivation in writing the story? What was his connection to the story? It would appear that the person who wrote this story had extensive knowledge of both the topography of the area and knew or had access to records pertaining to the lost gold shipment. That's another possibility. I mean, if they have records of the lost gold shipment, and the other thing, they're carving this on a piece of cherry wood, and he's kind of going through his records, that could also lead to the "they see me" part on it. If the story is true, suspects could include a Pinkerton agent, a government official, a member of the army, or a person who was a member of the caravan escorting the gold shipment. If the story is not true, then it may have been fabricated by a dime store novelist or for publication, or was it written by a person to play a hoax on the general public? It'd be interesting to know if the person who found the carving in Caledonia and the person who wrote the story is one and the same person. This is also, that is a very distinct possibility. They did the cherry carving, then wrote the story as they kept building on it. If the story is not true, then we believe the story was written by the person who found the carving in Caledonia. If the person who found the carving did write the story, we believe he was aware of the story before making the carving. Good possibility. Linking one thing has nothing to do with another. There are many people, including some Civil War historians, who are of the opinion that the story is nothing more than glorified folklore. For example, Professor Alan Carl Guelzo, an American historian of the Civil War era at Gettysburg College and director of the Civil War era studies, claims he's never heard such a gold shipment and doubt it ever happened. In the early 1990s, we hired Jason L. Jordan to a research investigator in Washington, D.C. to search government records for the purpose of documenting the Dent Run lost gold shipment. The only results we got from this investigation was an invoice for his services, as he was unable to verify the story. He did report that there may have been some information on the story in the Pinkerton files, but their files are so very extensive that would take months to do a thorough investigation. In addition, we researched and contacted everyone we knew who had any information on the lost gold shipment. The search for information included newspaper magazine articles, historical societies, libraries, and the Pennsylvania State Archive, as well as a number of government archives that include Gettysburg, Carlisle Military Institute, and Fort Monroe, but were unable to find a shred of evidence to document the story. Listed below under the heading of research, you will find some of our efforts in seeking information. Just about the time we became convinced that the Dent Run lost gold shipment was a fabricated hoax, we received news from a bucktail reenactor from Clearfield, who, like us, is very, very interested in the lost gold story, informed us of an article that appeared in a San Francisco newspaper reporting that the body of Lieutenant James Conner, a member of the lost gold shipment in the mountains of Pennsylvania, was exhumed from a local cemetery in California and relocated to Arizona to make way for a new bridge. The excitement of hearing this news had an overwhelming impact in renewing our interest to search for the gold. Many field trips were made into the trout run and Dent Run area with metal detectors, shovels, in hopes of finding the lost treasure. Many nights were spent discussing what was found and developing plans for the next venture back to search for the gold. Realizing that the Pinkertons searched for years only found 2 1/2 bars, were we chasing the elusive gold at the end of the rainbow? However, as one of the researchers said, they didn't have metal detectors, and that's a very good point. The Pinkertons were looking for this in the mid 1800s. When they're looking for this, they're looking for it in oh around anytime between 2010 to 2018. So there, a lot has changed technology wise. The original story only identifies the guide as Connor without mention of his rank, first name, or correct spelling of his last name. Connor spelled with an E, not an O. Later reports during the FBI investigation in 2018 also identified him as Lieutenant James Connor. Finally, a credible piece of information acknowledging the lost gold shipment. Was the incorrect spelling of Connor in the original story an honest mistake, or was it a government cover-up? Did the War Department, acting on advice of Major Pinkerton, classify and expunge all information pertaining to the lost gold shipment, thereby making it nearly impossible for the general public to obtain any information regarding this story? That is a very distinct possibility, especially at today's prices with what that gold's worth. If they left all the exact information in there, didn't expunge it all, that place would probably still be crawling right now. So that's also something to think about. There isn't any doubt that the government has the resources to classify and expunge records, as evidenced by some of their actions in the past. For example, it is public knowledge that our government has classified and expunged nearly all the records of veterans who served in Cambodia during the Vietnam War. There's one example of it. We had people based in Cambodia. The CIA was based in Cambodia during with some of our soldiers. No record of it ever exists, but we know that they were there. There are many of these veterans whose records have been wiped so clean that they cannot even prove they served in this war. When someone does find credible information or evidence of the lost gold shipment, the government can spin the facts in such a matter as to question the validity of the information. If this is a government cover-up, we can also assume the names of Castleton and O'Rourke were also changed. We have also been unable to obtain any records of the veterans who served at Camp Dennison during the Civil War by the names of Castleton or O'Rourke. However, if someday we can't find the names of veterans who have the same profiles of either of these two men, we may then be able to identify the real names of the leaders of the lost gold shipment. Chase Hollow, a hollow that enters Trout Run from the east, is currently shown on current topographic maps published by the Department of Environmental Resources as entering Trout Run below the confluence of Trout and Spring Runs. Many of the old-timers who are familiar with the Trout Run area called the first hollow entering Trout Run above the Spring Run confluence Chase Hollow. This is also supported by older maps of the area. One is shown below. Is changing the name of the hollow just an honest mistake or a government cover-up? So there's a lot of things going on here. Names possibly being changed, hollows possibly being named the wrong name to throw people off the track. A bunch of different things. And here in the book, you're not going to be able to see it too well. In fact, if you get the book, it shows the two locations in this map right here, where it was and where they currently show it now, or currently name it now, and they basically flip flop the names of two hollows that lead into Trout Run. The map to the left is a portion of a map prepared by the U.S. Department of the Interior entitled Commonwealth of Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Resources Topographic and Geologic Survey. The red circle on this map identified as one shows Chase Hollow entering Trout Run below the confluence of Spring Run and Trout Run. Circle 2 is a hollow that many woodsmen and hunters, together with several other survey maps, identify as the real Chase Hollow. So that is something of note. Because there's a lot of stuff going on here, like Connor's name being wrong and the possible naming of O'Rourke and Castleton, and this. There's too many things that are quote unquote mistakes to be a coincidence at this point. One, maybe two is a mistake. When you get up to four, now you're looking at a trend. Thunder Mountain. A number of articles on this story report that Connor guided Captain Davis over Thunder Mountain when they returned to the site of where the gold wagons were abandoned. The location of Thunder Mountain is the first mountain to the east as you exit Route 55 onto Dent's Run Road in the community of Dent's Run. In March 15th, 2018, when the FBI made their dig for gold, it was correctly reported by the Du Bois Courier Express that the location of the dig was on Thunder Mountain, as acknowledged by many of the local citizens. On a map published by the Pennsylvania Department of Conservation and Natural Resources entitled Thunder Mountain Equestrian Trail and State Game Lands 311 Designated Routes, they refer to this area as equestrian riders can access the 53-mile Thunder Mountain Equestrian Trail from the Gaswell camping area or Dark Hollow camping area on Bell Draft Road, or the day use trailhead on East Hicks Road. The day use area lies approximately 3 miles from Route 555. Some feel the naming of these trails Thunder Mountain is very misleading to their actual location. Like Chase Hollow, Thunder Mountain is an important part of the Lost Gold story. Could it be naming these trails Thunder Mountain be misleading? Again, exactly, C. Dean. Yep. And with that being said, I mean, I see a trend happening here. So, and the more things that get misled, the more it's going to jumble stuff up. Like, I followed a quote unquote map for something else that somebody had down by the Quiona Wild area, and I found it on the map, but how I had to find it, he sent me the map that if you look at the map like this, you actually turn the map like this, then he turned it upside down. So I had to basically turn everything back around to where it should be to make it match what I had so I could find it. And I did find it easily, but this guy did not make it easy on me. Which, ironically, it was the same guy that supposedly found this gold and said that the FBI took it off of him. Or I should say guys. That's a long story in and of itself, and I don't think this book really gets into it at all. But there may be a part 3 and a part 4 to this, so we will get into that when we get toward the end here. The Grit newspaper reported the Army sent personnel shortly following World War I to search for the gold, and again following World War II, sent personnel armed with mine detectors to conduct a second search. This action was based on classified information. Was this action based on classified information or folklore? I'm thinking if in World War I and World War II, that they're sending people to look for this, I'm saying the U.S. military and the U.S. government doesn't go off of guesses. They know something's up there. They just don't know where it's at. They don't just send people just to run around the woods with metal detectors for no good reason. Even if it is a quote, lead people off the track, I just I have a hard time believing that. If we're going to put that much money into it, they want to get something back out of it. That's just how the government works. The DNCR is spending a lot of time and money in the head of Chase Hollow. They have fenced in a large area of forest in a project they call Trout Ridge. They claim this project is to promote the growth of a new forest. Recently, they built a new road with a substantial sandstone base over a horse trail they had previously installed in the area. This area is very near where the rock described. Exactly, C. Dean. I mean, you're probably like me. You see a trend going here. The area is very near where the rock described above is, or was located. Perhaps the name of this project should have been more appropriately called Chase Hollow instead of Trout Ridge. And the thing about it is, it says very near that rock. I heard some people say they put that up to hide stuff. They put the fence around it. Here's the thing. I'm very familiar with that area and this practice. And I'm going to show you that picture here. Right there. Now, if you've ever been up around that area, that yellow, that's a gate. You can get into that. And those gates are made to only swing out. So if anything's inside of it, it can easily get back out, but it's not going to let animals back in. A human, on the other hand, is going to walk up, pick up that gate, walk right through it, and know how to get back out again. So it's not a very good deterrent. So I think in this case, the DNCR is actually trying to grow a new forest. And I think the DNCR is acting without any intelligence from the United States government, if there is anything there, any clues or what have you. Or maybe the United States government knows about it and says, hopefully this hides something, and just lets the DNCR do their thing without telling them anything. I know this kind of sounds like tinfoil hat stuff, but that's a possibility. How can I put this? Why tell them to stop or keep going or throw money at it if they're going to do your job for you anyway, if you just keep your mouth shut? The story has two important clues that leads to the honey hole. Clues that gives a general location of important points along the route of the Civil War wagons. The first clue is a survey crew finding remains of 3 to 5 skeletons in the general vicinity of the Elk and Camry boundary line near a spring. The second clue is Captain Davis' official report, which states he found several trails leading to the southwest from where the freight wagons were abandoned. Let's start with the remains of 3 to 5 skeletons in the general vicinity of the Elk and Camry boundary line near a spring. Let's start with that. Read my mind, C. Dean. What I want to know is how far apart these bodies were. Were they all found along one trail? I actually have several questions about this. How close were they? Were they all found along one trail, or were they kind of just laid next to each other? Even though they kind of found remains well after the fact, I think they found the remains like 7 or 8 years later. The next question I have is, when they did find the bodies, and if they were trailed out, were their head and the feet all kind of pointed in the same direction, like they're running up the trail trying to run from something, and they're getting gunned down in the back? Because if they're getting gunned down in the back, they would fallen forward. Their feet would have been facing the way they came, and their head was the direction of travel. That to me, that's an important clue to know exactly what happened. Um, it's just it's one of those things that it may seem like an insignificant part, but it's a very significant part all in the same way, because that would prove that there was a battle or some kind of skirmish going on that these guys were running from. The next question I have is trails leading to the southwest from where the freight wagons were abandoned. Well, if you go from southwest out of Dent's Run, you're headed toward Benezet and Caledonia, which might bring that piece of cherry wood back into play. It could have been done. Well, we went over that, but exactly, C. Dean, how the bodies were laid out. If they're kind of just haphazard in there, like one facing one way, one facing another way, what have you, it could be any combination, anything could have happened there. Or if they were kind of found in all kind of oriented the same direction, that tells a whole another story. Near where Near where an important part of the story takes place is the location of a large food plot located on a remote section of land owned by the Pennsylvania Elk State Forest land. Okay. There's a lot of typos in this book, so bear with me. On the north edge of this food plot is a corner of the Pennsylvania State Commission Elk State Forestry lands. It's a good walk to get to this location, and all roads leading to this location are gated. None of these roads goes directly to the food plot. Was the Commonwealth looking for gold when they selected this site? And they have a picture of the food plot. That's also a very common thing in Pennsylvania, because I could take you to a couple other game lands up in that area that are the same way. No road goes directly to the food plot, but there are food plots there. They're all over Hicks Run like that. They're in Dent's Run like that. They're up on top of Houston Hill like that. So that's a common thing. Now they could have been, but then again, they may not have been. I mean, we have a game lands. I live in Beaver County, and we have a game lands just across the border in Allegheny County, and all the food plots are like that. Some of them do touch a road, but there's some just out in the middle of the woods. And in the book, it also gives GPS coordinates. So you can plug in those GPS coordinates to Google Earth, or plug them in your GPS that just happen to be in the area. You can go straight to them. In 2018, when the FBI conducted a very costly investigation to dig for gold on Thunder Mountain and Dent's Run, it was reported that they had over 50 rooms booked in Du Bois. It was also reported they had several armored trucks standing by and a local militia on alert. Yet their report still remains classified. That's understandable. That only happened 2 years ago. It won't be declassified for quite a while under the Freedom of Information Act, if it ever gets declassified at all. And if they don't find the gold, or if nobody finds the gold, I doubt it's going to be declassified, because once it gets declassified, they're going to have people crawling all over the place again. Not that they aren't already, but that's a good possibility. Several days following the FBI investigation, a local citizen reported seeing a government Osprey doing a low-level flight over the Dent's Run area. The attached picture is similar to the V-22 Bell Boeing plane that has been reported being seen. Now, you guys probably seen the Osprey before. It's that little dude right there. It's like a helicopter, but once it gets airborne, it can swing and fly like a plane. So that's not And the game lands, depending on where you go, um, a lot of times they will run on state ground. They will run maneuvers. So I wouldn't say it's very common, but it's not uncommon to see that either. Um, it's probably the first time I seen Osprey. Now they could have been helping the FBI. They could have been doing maneuvers. It could go either way. But that's also probably going to be one of those things that's kind of classified information one way or the other. Summary, fact or fiction. It's a dense run gold story, just an old wives' tale, as a spokesman for the Elk County Historical Society claimed. Its director of the Civil War era studies, who claim is correct when he states that he doubts the lost gold shipment ever never happened, or do we have sufficient circumstantial evidence to prove him wrong? Is this a story? Is this story a century-old prank that's become a century-old folklore capturing both national and international attention? That's still a very good possibility because in 2018, the FBI dug for gold. The reports of the armored trucks being up there was confirmed. My uncle has a camp like one haul away in Hicks Run, and he went up Dent's Run to see what's going on. And this is the armored trucks are sitting there every day. The armored trucks would go up. They didn't put anything in them. They dug a big hole, didn't find anything, and left. The other thing that makes me think that they didn't find anything is the FBI has a big tendency to try to toot its own horn. They said nothing. If they found this gold, put it in the armored trucks, had it secure and got it back, and kept it secure to its final location, they would have been talking up a storm about this because that's just how the FBI operates. The FBI, if they crack a case, they want everybody, or if they solve a case, they let everybody know about it. That's just, even a lot of stuff that you think they shouldn't be talking about, don't talk about it. So there's that. Is the article that appeared in the Grit newspaper true that following both World War One and World War II, the Army sent search teams into the area looking for the gold? Did the federal government, based upon Alan Pinkerton's request, expunge all government records pertaining to this story? Why did the government change the location of Chase Hall on current topographic maps? Those are all good questions. And I don't think they expunged it. They sealed it. They sealed it. Only certain people can see it at certain times. That's it. It is obvious, based on the FBI search in 2018, that the FBI has a classified file pertaining to the story. Duh. What prohibits them from publicly releasing this information? It is rumored that the federal government and various Commonwealth agencies are both claiming that they have the rights to the gold if found, which they do. It was government gold to begin with. It wasn't a lost treasure lost by one person. It was a treasure that was stolen from the United States government. So it is their gold. It's one of those things. It has a San Francisco mint mark in it. If it's done at a mint, it's going to have a mint mark. So if you do find some of this and you go try to take it to a pawn shop or one of these gold and silver places and try to turn it in, you're going to go to jail for a long time. That's just how it's going to work out. Why is the DCNR spending so much time in the remote wilds of Pennsylvania while in the remote? Okay, this guy can't type. Why is the DNCR spending so much time in remote parts of the Pennsylvania wild in locations where the gold may be found? That's just what the DNCR does. Um, the DNCR, once they have a game lands, they try to manage it the best way they know how, and they usually do a very good job of it. I think with the DNCR, this is coincidence. It's not so much that there is something there, is they don't know whether there's something there or not. That was the ground that they were given. They're taking care of it the best way that they know how to take care of it to get what they want. Is Jack Shaw's claim true? They met with a person who found a bar of gold and that he actually held the bar in his hands. Are the rumors true that during the FBI investigation in the spring of 2018 that they had several armored trucks standing by? Well, that's been confirmed. I do know the armored trucks and a local militia on alert in a nearby town. That's speculation because my uncle's seen the armored trucks in Dent's Run, so that part is confirmed. Although there isn't official documentation of the lost gold, is there enough circumstantial evidence to suggest that there may be gold in them hills? Regardless of whether or not there is a lost Dent's Run gold shipment, the legend lives on. So there's a lot of things going on here that people say it didn't exist, but why? As I said, we have at least 3, possibly 5 to 6 different instances where either names are changed, names are moved, and other things that are, hey Pat, and other things that don't quite add up. As I said, 1 or 2 might be coincidence. When you get up to like 5 or 6 like we are, now we're looking at a trend. So that trend is leading me to believe that they're changing stuff up to lead people off the track or away from the track. I have my own theory about it because I found a couple of clues myself, but they weren't in Dent's Run. There's the kicker. They weren't in Dent's Run. But we'll get into that a little bit later. Okay, gold hunters and related stories. The following stories are of people who are or have been searching for the gold, and those who are in some way connected to the story. Story 1, the water hole. I was invited to join a fellow gold hunter who told me he found an area where he thought the gold was buried. He found the spot of his dig using a directional metal detector. This metal detector is mounted on a spindle, and by holding it by the spindle and scanning the area, the detector will turn toward the spot, giving off the signal. He said that once he got his first hit, he was able to triangulate the spot to pinpoint the exact location. The spot he located was between 2 large rocks overlooking the valley of Bell Draft. Here he had dug a hole about 6 feet deep. At the bottom of the hole, there was a large rock. He was convinced that gold was just beneath the rock. We finally decided that it would be nearly impossible for someone to bury the gold that deep. There was some water in the bottom of the hole, and we decided to have the water tested for metal content. The testing was done by G&C Coal Analyst Lab, and they reported that the water contained a slightly higher content than normal for gold and silver. The extensive search was made of the area, but the effort was in vain. However, there was a small piece of harness leather wedged between a crack in one of the rocks. That could be a clue. It might not be a clue. Let's go back to the beginning of the book with the harness leather. Remember, in one story there was 5 mules, in the other story actually in both stories there was like 3 to 5 mules. In the cartoon version that I read you guys, they were found dead. In the first version, a man found them wandering around in the woods. So That could be where that harness leather came from. And if they found a piece of that harness leather, that would suggest to me that they were found wandering around in the woods. If they weren't, however, if they were dead, what I want to know is if they were all found in one area. Because if they were found in a close enough area, like a group, they were killed. And if they were killed deliberately in an area to lead you away. You would never do something like that to lead people to. It's a decoy. Story 2, Dent's Run Wagon. In 2007, I was contacted by Richard Scott asking if we could get together to share information on the gold. I was aware that Richard's father, Massimo, and Clary Anderson spent many years searching for the lost gold. It was Clary who first told me about the lost gold shipment a number of years ago. Clary was crippled with polio and spent many hours reading and researching for information. He claimed he had found the information on the lost gold shipment in an old history book, but I was never able to get him to tell me the source of his information. He would look at me and grin and say, "There's gold in them there hills." Massimo had run a trap line in the Dent's Run area dating all the way back to the Depression years. He was most knowledgeable with the topography of the Dent's Run area. Based on their theory, they believe the shipment was robbed, and following the robbery, the robbers stopped at the Big Spring in Dark Hollow, and at some point proceeded down Dent's Run toward Wilmer. Here, the wagons got bogged down in the soft, swampy area. They then made the decision to abandon the freight wagon and move the gold back towards Chase Hollow in the smaller wagon. Dick did mention that they were aware of an article printed years ago in the Du Bois paper that reported the discovery of the remains of an old wagon in Dent's Run area that may have been associated with the lost gold shipment. Once arriving back in Chase Hall, they knew they had to move quickly in the fear that they may be caught by a rescue party coming up Dent's Run or down Goat Summit following their original route. They were well aware, if caught, they would be hanged. So here in Chase Hall, they hid a portion of the gold bars and made an escape with the bars they could carry. Now, what is rather odd to me is these bars weigh 50 pounds apiece. I'm thinking that's may have been where those mules came in. They used those mules to move those bars. A mule could carry between 200 to 250 pounds apiece. So we're going to get rid of the first 2.5 bars of gold. That's going to be 125 pounds. So you're still going to have a good bit of weight left, but you can distribute that over 5 mules, and all 5 of those mules should be just fine with the weight on their back. Dick gave us a copy of an old geological survey map dated 1863, which was a study of the coal and limestone deposits on the Winslow Hill property. It is interesting to note that the map shows the old turnpike road. A copy of the map appears below. And I find something very interesting with this map. It's showing Winslow Hill over here, but over here in Hicks Run, there's a couple things missing that we know that are there now. Now, back then, let's put it this way, if the people who took the gold knows the area as well as the book makes it out, not, hello, okay, here we go, we're good. Did they go up one of those hollows that is not showing on this map? what better place to hide something is in an area that people don't even think exists. You you picking up what I'm laying down there? So that is also a very good possibility. So I mean, this book takes you in all kinds of different directions and gets the mind going. Especially, I don't know Dent's Run, but I know Hicks Run. I know the Hicks Run watershed very well. And I'm sort of looking at that map like, well, I could hide it here, I could hide it here, I could hide it here because all those places don't show on this map. And if anybody's going to go looking for anything, they're going to follow this map and they're probably going to ignore anything that's not on it. Just a hypothesis of mine. I might be wrong. Maybe, maybe not. Who knows? One of the investigation methods often used in solving a crime is to follow the money. It had always been rumored throughout the community that Andrew Call found the gold. Another rumor claimed someone saw a large pile of gold bars in a clay mine owned by Andrew Call. The question is, did Call find a lost gold shipment or perhaps a portion of the shipment? Andrew Call was born in St. Mary's on July 15, 1845. In 1865, the partnership of Call and Joseph Lansell was timbering the West Creek, where they were considered pioneers of the woods. Their contract was with Hedrick, Lentz, and White of Williamsport. The West Creek Manufacturing and Mining Company contracted with them in 1866 to stock their mills near the village of Beechwood. In 1867, following the completion of this contract, the partnership was terminated. Mr. Call entered into a second contract to continue supplying to the same mills, employing a force of 60 men, and completed this contract in spring of 1868, which proved to be a very profitable venture. Andrew Call was on the pathway of becoming a very wealthy man in just a few years following the loss of the gold shipment in 1863. He was considered a pioneer of the woods, and one would think he had an excellent knowledge of the woods between West Creek and Trout Run areas. In 1885, Andrew Call and J.K.P. Hall acquired 600 acres in the headwaters of Trout Run, and here they established the Trout Run Park, which they called Jim and Andy's Park. In 1887, when they built an 8-foot to 10-foot fence around the vast majority of this park, it again fueled rumors he found the gold within the fenced area. Did Andrew Call find the gold or a portion of the gold shipment? Maybe, maybe not. What we do know is that Cole was a very successful businessman. With that wealth coming on like that, I'm thinking because people wanted wood bad and they wanted it now. I'm thinking he got most of his money from this contract. It's a possibility he found the gold, but then again, he couldn't turn it in because of that mint mark. Those mint marks, as soon as it has a mint mark in it and it belongs to the government, if he held on to it, it's now considered theft, and he would have gotten hung if he went to try to cash it in. So myself, I'm thinking that he got his money from his contracts. That's what I'm inclined to believe anyway. Story 5, Personal Searches. As young men, I hunted in Dent's Run, Chase Hollow, and Bell Draft, and later in life hunted at Call's Hunting Lodge, at the invitation of Andrew Call. I liked the area so much that at one time I came close to purchasing the Lone Ranger camp. My wife, Shirley Harrison, was born and raised in Dent's Run, and her brothers, Jim and Ralph, knew the area like the back of their hands. This also created my interest in hunting, camping, and looking for the gold. In looking for the gold, I purchased several metal detectors, ones that would find metal as deep as 12 feet. I never did tell my wife how much I paid for this detector. Very wise man. You know what I'm saying. My son and I made a trip into bell drafts back in the early 90s to do some scouting and found two bullets shown here. And what he found, these are bullets here. They're Civil War, what they call mini balls, which is actually a cone shaped bullet and has a depression in the back. And what those ribs are for, when they fire it, it will actually expand that bullet so it catches the rifling and starts putting a spin on it. And that cone shape helps it fly better so it's not tumbling through the air. They were found near several huge rocks near the pipeline that runs through the Beldraft area. We had the bullets examined by a Civil War reenactor, and he confirmed that these bullets were more than likely fired from either a Springfield or Enfield rifle of Civil War vintage. Over the years, in addition to the bullets, we have found steel banding from wooden barrels, several horseshoes, a spoon, shell casings, metal stove parts, together with a number of unrelated items. What we didn't find was any gold. Gordon Whincombe, who once ran a Whitcomb store, had on display an old beat-up saddlebag bearing the initials U.S. It is also rumored that Jack P. found an old rusty Civil War musket while venturing into Trout Run on a dirt bike ride. Story 6, The Psychic. Yeah, we're getting the mediums involved now. Look out. The following story is related to me by one of the people searching for the gold. This was obsessed in looking for the gold. This is what he wrote, and thought he could get some insight on the gold shipment from a psychic, fortune teller. He said that when he met the psychic, he didn't give her any information about himself, only that he was looking for something lost. He said she held his hand in her hand, and in a few minutes told him he was looking for something buried. You're looking for gold. After a brief moment, he said he went into a trance and blurted out, I have been shot and stuffed into a cave. I have bobcat pups licking my face. I'm going to die. Whatever else she told this chap, he never said. One of these days, we'll have to make a trip to New York to visit one of these psychics. Yeah, I don't know if I put any validity into that or not, because that's kind of circumstantial. And if you said you went to a psychic and that's what the psychic told you, unless you have a video of this happening, I'm not buying it. I think it's just somebody looking for publicity. So that's like one story I completely already shot off. Jack Shaw, story number 7. Jack Shaw. If there's ever a person totally infatuated with the lost gold shipment, it is Jack Shaw. We met through a mutual friend and would spend hours discussing various aspects of the story together, with making several field trips into the Dent area looking for the gold. One of the many seminars Jack held in the area on the lost gold was held at the American Legion building in Byrondale, sponsored by the Mount Zion Historical Society. It is interesting to note that Andy Call also attended this event. And Andy Call, I do believe, is a descendant of the Calls that we were talking about in the 1800s. Jack spent a number of years in the area doing geographical work for the government. He claimed that during one of his visits to Washington, that he stumbled upon a classified file on the lost gold shipment. Jack claimed he wasn't permitted to copy the file, but the person in charge of the department allowed him to make some written notes on the content of the file. I want to see these notes. I would love to see these notes, just so some of those notes could verify what this book's talking about. Jack also claimed he befriended a man in a Benazet hotel who claimed he had found a bar of gold. After meeting with persons on several different occasions, Jack said he showed him the bar of gold which he found in the Trout Run area in 1986. According to Jack, the bar was marked SF 1882 with a 4-digit serial number stamped on the bottom of the bar. Jack identified this individual as a recluse who once lived in the Benezet area and later moved to St. Mary's, where he kept a bar under his bed. Jack found the remnants of a wagon wheel in the Dent Run area that he claimed precisely matched the government specifications of a Civil War wagon. Picture courtesy of Echo newspaper, Cameron County, and try to get in. There's a picture of the wagon wheel there, which I'm a little skeptical of, because if it was a freight wagon, that hub is a little small for a freight wagon. That's just the way I look at it. That hub's not going to stand up to being dragged over the mountains. It's going to break. It was Jack's intentions to write a book on the lost gold shipment. I don't believe he ever published the book, but I told him I would like to purchase the first copy. Story 8, Miles Dent. By 1843, Miles Dent, founder of Dent's Run, had timbered most of the native pine trees in the Dent Run Valley, from mountaintop to mountaintop and up the valley to the confluence of Dent's Run and Bell Draft. The huge pine on the top of the mountains were choice trees, as they could be cut without splitting. The virgin forest north of the confluence had not been timbered until sometime after 1863, when a railroad was built up along the stream of Bell Draft. It appears obvious, according to the story, that the gold shipment was lost somewhere north of the confluence of Dent's Run and Bell Draft. When Connors departed the lost wagons for help, he would only have to go a few short miles, if that, before encountering some skid roads or trails of Dent's timbering operation. This would also mean that his route could have been either down the valley or on top of the valley. One of the questions most often asked is, why didn't Connors seek help in Dent's Run instead of bypassing both Dent's and Hicks Run? Does it make sense to consider that Connors hid a portion of the gold along this route, as it was his closest access to the outside world? Was there gold buried or hidden on Miles Dent's property? Did Miles Dent find any of the gold? Was Miles Dent a man of substance and probably considered by the Pinkertons agents as a suspect? However, Dent's estate was only worth approximately $11,000 when he died. However, in 1863, gold was worth $31.23 an ounce. When Dent died in 1899, gold was worth $20.67 an ounce. So there's some fluctuation there. But there are probably about another 3 to 5 more stories. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to hit those next time. So this is pretty much all I'm going to have for you for tonight. And just to remind y'all, I said this at the beginning of this, so I'm going to say this again now. Just a little bit of an update. Not this coming weekend, but the following weekend, I'm going to start putting videos out on the weekends on my series. Maybe a few other ones mixed in here and there. But I'm going to try to start scheduling those and start doing my series in kind of like a round robin, so I can keep all those going. And the Tuesday night chat is still going to happen, so that's not changing. But as soon as we change the time, I'm going to be leaving home in the dark and coming home in the dark from work. So there's not going to be, I'm not going to have any light to shoot with once I get home. But that's all I have for you guys tonight. So hope I kept you guys, the ones that did show up, I hope I kept you all entertained. I thank you all for coming, and I will see you next Tuesday. Night, everybody.